Hi, Matt Sitter here, CEO of AFN. Great to be here again with you. Change is where opportunity happens. That's really what we think about most within AFN. And the best way to find opportunity in change is a network that is diverse in experience, expertise, and perspective. Today, our discussion is with Afam Onyema. He has done an amazing job mobilizing support for his nonprofit GEANCO. Afam founded GEANCO while he was in law school at Stanford in 2005. So he wasn't too busy. He figured out a way to do that. And they focus on support for the health and well-being of Nigerians with a specific focus on maternal health and support for female victims of terrorism and gender inequality. Afam, awesome to see you. Great to talk today. Welcome.
Thanks so much for having me, Matt. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Awesome. So I give us just a little bit about GEANCO. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So we're dedicated to saving and transforming lives in Nigeria. And on the medical side, we bring doctors over to do medical missions and mostly hip and knee replacements, gallbladders, hernia repairs. And we've been doing those. I think our first mission was back in 2005, and we just did one last year. So not only are you able to do direct service and bring those surgeons over to do complex care, but also we are training local surgeons and bringing them from around the country to learn and to share skills so they can be able to do it when we leave. And so that's wonderful. And then my dad is an obstetrician gynecologist. And so maternal health and infant health have always been really important to us. And we started with an anemia program. Anemia is a blood condition, and Nigeria has the worst anemia problem in all of Africa. And so we started a program where we screen women and children non-invasively for their blood oxygen, their pulse ox, and those who are severely anemic, women who are severely anemic and pregnant, we pay for their care through the third trimester of their pregnancy so they can deliver safely healthy babies. And then what I'm really excited about is we take 40-foot shipping containers and turn them into maternal and family centers. So these are now clinics in really, really poor rural and urban areas where women are getting high quality treatment. They're getting maternal care. Their babies are being delivered safely. Those babies are being vaccinated and treated. And we have 5 of those clinics, solar powered and self-contained. So with Nigeria's terrible power grid, these clinics are still working and they can do deliveries in the middle of the night. And not only are they centers of excellence for these women and communities, but young nurses and midwives are trained there every day, and they're run by local nurses and midwives. So we don't run them. We stand them up. We grant them to local midwives and nurses, and then they run them, and we provide support and care and complex instruction in terms of making sure that they have the best training possible. And then quickly on the education side, we have a scholarship for girls who have been directly affected by terrorism and gender inequality, the David Oyelowo Leadership Scholarship for Girls. And we started with 3 girls at one school. We now have 42 girls at 5 schools throughout the country. And we find girls in urban slums and refugee camps. And these are mostly orphans, or they've lost one parent, or they've been driven from their homes, or they've been abandoned because unfortunately their families valued their brothers over them. And so they're left on roads, left on the side of the road, or left at hospitals or churches. And so we take these girls and we're not only give them education, but we're surrogate parents to a lot of them. And so we're really excited about that program. And then we support the schools themselves with computer labs and sports fields and facilities so that all the students there can experience high quality education.
That's great. A couple questions just on some of the things that you're doing. So the surgeries that you guys started out doing, or many of them that you perform, how did you decide on those as areas to focus on?
Yeah, no, and it's amazing how I think people, you have a plan and then things happen and you just go with it. So I wish I could say that we had this plan, but really it was my aunt. She was at the time a scrub tech, someone who worked in the surgery OR for a orthopedic group in Chicago, Rush University Hospital. And that group talked about wanting to do a mission somewhere. And they were looking at India, they were looking at Haiti, they were looking at all these different places. But my aunt's like, no, you're coming to Nigeria. If you want to do a mission, come to Nigeria. And so they came to me, and I was in law school at the time, so I couldn't go, but I helped set up the apparatus for it, helped fundraise for it. And that team went and did 25 hip and knee replacements back in 2005. And they came back, and I saw the pictures and heard the stories. And I thought, my goodness, those lives were changed forever. And they would not have been if not for this mission. And it wasn't like there was a mission coming the next week, the next month. They were going to have constant pain the rest of their life if it wasn't for this mission. And so that got me thinking about, wow, I could do this every single day of my life. I could get up every morning and have this be my mission. And then just through a chance, I met with another lawyer who happened to be chairman of one of the largest orthopedic device companies in the world. And we talked about it and said, oh, you guys are doing these missions, or you did this mission, you want to keep doing them? My company will support you in that. And so for years, this company supported us with equipment and supplies. And then once you do one mission, then the word spreads among the surgeons and the network, and they want to go back and do it. And the residents want to go back. And so now we have this pool of surgeons, and we kind of think every year, we think, okay, like, what do we want to do this year? Then I have one of my dear classmates and friends, Dr. Kevin Hayek, who for years bugged me and said, hey, you guys are doing these ortho missions. I'm a general surgeon. If you ever want to do appendix, gallbladder, hernia surgeries, let me know. And we had a break in between the ortho missions. We brought him over in 2018. He did an amazing job. And now he went back in 2021, 2022. He joined our board. And so it's amazing what these doctors do on these missions. They change lives forever. Their lives and their experiences are changed forever. And it's one of the things I'm most proud of.
That's great. And the virality of it, and making sure that the folks who are providing services for you, they have a good experience, I think is, it has been a massive opportunity for you. Just saying like, oh yeah, I want to go back. That's great.
Absolutely. There's sometimes trepidation because obviously people Google Nigeria and just they see so many stories that are negative, and Nigeria in particular has a bad reputation. And then I've had parents call me worried about their doctor who's a surgeon going, or their family member. But we've done dozen missions and nothing's ever happened besides our team being thoroughly inspired and wanting to go back. We have multiple people who have gone back multiple times. And it's just one of those things where people who were scared to go, their colleagues go, and they hear all these amazing stories, and they come to me and say, oh, I'm sorry, I want to go now. Keep me in mind. Please keep me in mind. So the people are amazing in Nigeria. They're so grateful. And it's a great training ground for the surgeons. I remember on one mission, one of our surgeons came out of his first surgery and said, that was the hardest surgery I've ever done. Like that the person had waited, obviously didn't have treatment. And so the hip was really just malformed and diseased. And like, this is the worst one. Then he did the next surgery. He's like, nope, that was the worst one. And it's amazing. They're like, these are all terrible cases, but they're great for us because I'm a better surgeon now because I've seen these cases and I'm able to like really stretch myself as a surgeon, and I'm training these local surgeons and seeing these local surgeons that go from resident to surgeon to senior surgeon throughout the 15 plus years we've been doing this is a real great joy for us, for me in particular.
That's great. The one other thing I wanted to hit from what you described was with the maternal wards that you put together in the shipping containers. You and I, when we had spoken before, you talked about just the amount of data that you're gathering around it and how that is helping to drive making sure that they're doing the right thing, that you're able to improve around it. Can you just talk to us about that for a minute?
Absolutely. Yes. And I have to give all the credit to my team and my program manager in particular, whose name was Obi Okoye. We were originally, GEANCO's grand mission was to build a world-class hospital in Nigeria. When I started, I left Stanford Law School in 2007. That was my plan. That was our plan, to raise a bunch of money, $15, $20 million, build a big, grand, world-class hospital. And we started from zero. We didn't have any money ourselves as a family. I certainly didn't have any money. And so it's just really difficult to try to go from 0 to 15 million with no experience and all of that. And so the word du jour, we pivoted and thought, like, what can we do to make an impact on the ground? And Obi had this idea, like, hey, we have these shipping containers. I have a friend who's an engineer. we can retrofit them and turn them into clinics, and they're modular. We can put them anywhere we want. Why not start with that? Why not get these clinics going? And I mean, that's a fantastic idea. And he said, and let's make sure that we make them as modern and connected as possible. So we're not just building them and saying, good luck, we hope this works out. Like, we want to be there, walk the nurses and midwives who are there through training, but then also make sure that we can judge this and measure it. And because nothing in Nigeria gets measured properly, nothing gets evaluated. And so one of the things that we insist when a midwife or a nurse takes over a clinic is you must sign up for this program where you're going to upload data every month to the cloud. So we have access to it. We know, oh, well, what happened in February of last year? We saw there was a huge dip in deliveries. Is something wrong? Do we need to address that? Or, wow, like you really exploded in March. Do we need to give you more resources or support? So it's been great for us. And it just, it gives lie to the idea that, you know, Nigerians are too poor and for lack of a better word, too stupid to do things on the cloud and upload. These are women who are dedicated to it, and they learn the technology and they learn our system. And so I can tell you, you know, if you ask me, okay, how many deliveries were in clinic number 3 in March of last year, I can go and find the data. And that's really important to us to be able to report back to the donors, because this was entirely donor funded. This was actually one family that funded all 5 clinics. And so and it allows us to network and say, okay, well, clinic number 1 is having trouble with this. Maybe clinic number 2 can help and support. And so we really do see it as a network and a system, and not just kind of one-off clinics that we're building and then kind of like, good luck, and we go away. And we're with them throughout the entire process.
Right. Very cool. No, I think it's really exciting what you've done around that. One of the things that I find so interesting about GEANCO, you know, capital needs define a lot about what we do. You've been able to garner really impressive support in what I would define as a very competitive space where people choose to give their money. There's a lot of people out there who are saying like, hey, can you support us in this way or that? And I would argue that although Nigeria is going to be one of the largest countries in the world, probably the most populous at some point real soon, still relatively narrow from, you know, the viewpoint of some folks here in the US. How do you think you've been able to create something that appeals to a broad range of supporters?
That's a great question. And it's interesting. So when I graduated, I was graduating Stanford and had decided to turn down my corporate law offers and do GEANCO full time, start it and run it. I had to decide, well, where do I want to do that? I'm from Chicago. I didn't really want to go back to Chicago. I worked there for 3 years before law school. I'm not really an East Coast guy. I'd done, you know, Boston and Harvard as an undergrad. So I was like, well, I need to be in a place where I obviously have resources so I can go out in the local community and raise money. I was in the Bay Area, but I thought, gosh, if I move down to LA and get the entertainment community involved, get Hollywood involved, it just opens up a different opportunity to raise money, and allows you to do creative things and to get people involved who might not want to get involved or be interested because it's Nigeria. I told my dad when I first started working full time, we're fighting both disease and doubt. People hear about Nigeria and they think about Nigerian prince emails and scams. And so we have to be able to fight that and counter that. So I thought, you know what, move to LA, set up shop, and if I fall on my face, can either move somewhere else or go back to working, go and work for a law firm or what have you. So I got here to LA, and it was just building relationships. It took a very long time, because I just hate transactional relationships. I hate transactional situations where I am just all about, you know, someone's all about trying, I'll give you this if you give me that. I just can't live life like that. And so I spent years just building relationships with people, and here in LA, just building relationships with someone at the gym and finding out they're a lawyer for a large, you know, entertainment company, so they get involved. Or, you know, a friend I have in the neighborhood happens to know someone who manages the guy who's in the Marvel franchise and what have you. And so just beginning to build those relationships, I really kind of the keystones for me were, I got introduced to David Oyelowo, who's a British Nigerian actor. He was Martin Luther King in Selma. He was in Lincoln. He was in all sorts of great movies. And he had a passion for getting back to Nigeria and had this idea of all these girls who are being taken by Boko Haram, Hope Bring Back Our Girls campaign. We can't fight terrorism, but we can get these girls back into school and get girls into school. And so together we founded the scholarship, and he just was amazing with opening up his network, and Oprah, his good friend, seeded the foundation, the scholarship, and other, Charlize Theron and other folks joined in. And then kind of separate from that, I got to know an actor, another British Nigerian actor, Chiwetel Ejiofor, who his school is in the region where we work. His mom founded a school there. And so we partnered together to support that school. The majority of our scholarship girls go to his mom's school. And he's part of the Marvel universe. He was Oscar nominated for 12 Years a Slave, but he's in the Doctor Strange movies. And so I got to know people in that world, including Benedict Cumberbatch, who's become a dear friend and supporter. And so it's just growing this network, and then having advocates who people trust. If I go to someone in the Marvel universe or go to this actor, they're not going to give me the time of day. They're getting 8 million requests. If I go through their publicists, and I tried that. I went to publicists, and I went to agents, and they're all very polite, but they didn't do anything. But if it's David asking his friend Angelina to support, if it's Chiwetel asking his co-star Benedict to consider this, it becomes less about, well, do I care about Nigeria, and more, do I care about supporting my friend? Do I care about girls? I always tell people, yes, working in Nigeria, but if you care about educating and empowering girls, then please consider this. If you care about women delivering babies who are healthy and delivering them in a place of dignity, not on dirt floors, but in clinics that are clean and well run, then support this. And so I try to expand the aperture and say, hey, don't think of this as giving only to Nigeria. Think about this as giving to girls, supporting maternal health and infant health. And I think that's been successful for us. And we're able to punch above our weight also because I mentioned between college and law school, I did corporate PR, and I learned the importance of telling your story. And I think that's one thing that I would tell anyone who's in a nonprofit or for-profit, who's a CEO, tell your story. Get your story down packed, know what your story's about, know what's compelling about it, and share it. Nonprofits in particular are terrible at telling their story. It's not about us. I don't want to be in the limelight. It's not about you being in the limelight. It's about you sharing your work so others can hear about it, learn about it, and support it. So we kind of punch above our weight in that area because I just realized at a young age the importance of telling our story and sharing our story, and then realizing that I'm in the land of story. Hollywood is a story town, and I can give all the stats I want to someone who's an actor or a executive, but if I tell them a story, that resonates more than anything else because they're storytellers. They literally get dressed up and tell stories for a living. And so I found just sharing my story about growing up as the son of Nigerians and my dad having this dream of wanting to go back and help our native land, and me working with my family, and we're doing this as a family. I don't care if they're a billionaire. I don't care if they're an Oscar winner. I don't care if they lead a Girl Scout troop. You just see their eyes light up because they're thinking about their own story, their family, what's important to them. And so that's what's compelling, I think, about our work is that I wasn't hired by GEANCO to do this. And if I get a better pay package from Doctors Without Borders tomorrow, I'm moving. No, I'm doing GEANCO the rest of my life. And because it's my own, it's my family, it's my story. And that resonates with our donors and our supporters. They know that I'm not going anywhere. They can trust me. They can trust what we're doing. And we have a 15+ year track record of working, so they can trust that our work is going to get done and done well.
So I think one of the things that you did, so you said, hey, I'm going to geo-target getting out of law school because that'll have an amplification effect if you can get involved in the entertainment industry. And I'm a network nerd, obviously. But thinking about how you were actually utilizing network to borrow credibility from someone else, essentially, to help drive those opportunities that open up for you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I'm here speaking to you because of two groups. And one is my alumni network. And I think people do not use their alumni network enough. And maybe use isn't the right word. They don't, it's a rich source of support. And they don't lean into it the way they should. When I decided to do GEANCO, I hand wrote hundreds, if not 1,000 letters to Harvard and Stanford alums throughout the country. I don't care if they went to, I did Harvard undergrad and Stanford Law School, but I don't care if they went to Stanford Business School or Harvard Medical School. I wrote them a letter. I felt like they had some connection or some, they're people of means, or if they were people that were well known. And I'd send 1,000 letters and maybe I get, 80 or 90 people to respond. And of those 80 or 90, maybe 50 donated. But to this day, I can trace back some of our big, high profile givers to someone who responded to a letter in 2008, 2007. And it's because, and I leaned on that. Hey, I'm this alum that has this crazy idea. I just want to talk to you about it. And that resonated with them. I remember one in particular who I'm still good friends with. He first donated in 2008 and has been supporting ever since. He's like, I got this letter, and I'm like, this is insane what you're doing, but I want to learn about the guy who's doing this, who's giving all this up to do this. And he's doing it from a school that I recognize, and kind of, I want people from my school to do well and do interesting things. And so I implore people to just look into your alumni network. And if you're trying to get into a certain business, if you're trying to get into a certain company, if you're trying to get support, raise capital, and there's a certain, maybe someone has access to capital, and you just write them and say, hey, I was class of this, you were class of that. Like, where'd you live on campus? What, oh man, I'm so sorry. Our team is terrible this year. Like I make the tournament. Like, find some way to connect with them and
Right.
get in. And that's really, it's amazing. The responses I've gotten from people who are really high profile, who respond because they're able to lean into that alumni connection. And so that's been huge for us. And I pair that with the celebrity support we've gotten, and they often overlap. I got to know Charlize Theron through her attorney, who was a Harvard football player. I played football at Harvard. He was about 10 years ahead of me, but I reached out to him through a mutual, another Harvard football player, and we became connected. He's a donor, and he's been able to connect me with folks. And again, it's one of those things where, like, we have that common bond. And I try to find that. The first thing I do, if I want to get to someone, get to a company, I live on LinkedIn, or I live through other networks. I figure, who do I know at that company who went to Harvard, went to Stanford, or like, do I know someone who knows someone who, and that's the first place I start. And it's been really successful for us. And I continue to lean on that network.
Well, I think it's so interesting, like to connect it back to the story portion. You're actually, where we went to school usually has a big impact on our life. We've got stories that we've built up around that. And so you're accessing those stories and kind of making it a common one for you and the person you're connecting with.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
When you think about, so you worked at a global PR firm, did a good job putting together your story. Any tips on how we ought to be thinking about our own story, where you're saying, like, hey, nail these couple things and you're going to be in a better off spot than you were before?
Absolutely. I think the first word that comes to mind is vulnerability. I think vulnerability is a superpower. I think vulnerability and kindness are superpowers. And when you're telling your story, there's a tendency to want to be the hero and say, I overcame and I conquered, and I'm doing this, and I am doing that, and I have these numbers. You start throwing out stats and data, people's eyes glaze over. I think what's resonated with me and our story and sharing my story is not being afraid to be vulnerable and saying, I took this leap out of law school and I was terrified. We had no money. I was deep in debt from law school, and I didn't know how to fundraise. I never learned anything about it. I didn't take a single class, read a single book about it. And now I'm waking up in the morning and trying to save Africa, trying to save Nigeria. And those first couple of years running GEANCO were miserable. There was a lot of failure, a lot of self-doubt, and a lot of, reaching people and not being able to break through. And I just persevered and slowly built it and learned and made mistakes and pivoted off those mistakes and tried to find my tribe. And I think that resonates more than anything else. I think that resonates even more than, seeing the celebrities and the people that we have. Is like, yeah, we have this celebrity, but let me tell you the 18 million ways I screwed up before we're able to make that happen. And being vulnerable to this day, and the mistakes I make on a daily basis. And I still, for all the yeses we get, I get 5 times more no's. And how do you deal with that? How do you deal with people who supported you and no longer want to, or people who you think would say yes, who don't say yes? How do you deal with there's so much death and dysfunction in Nigeria, and not getting overwhelmed by it. So if someone wants to tell their story, the story of their business, entrepreneur path, they're raising capital for a company or a business, don't be afraid to say like, hey, I'm still learning here. I'm trying to figure this out. I want to walk this journey. I want someone who trusts me and wants to walk this journey with me. And you say, I was vulnerable here, but this is how I overcame. Like, people love that story of underdogs or overcomers. So don't be afraid. I think sometimes we want to show, it's the Instagram, social media world. We want to filter out all the mistakes and the bumps and the bruises, and no, like, lead with the bumps and the bruises, because people go, oh, like, you're afraid too, like, you have doubts too. I've sat with some of the biggest stars in the world, and they'll talk about their doubts about, oh, will this movie flop, or will I get another job, or will my kids be normal? And like, oh, like, you have those doubts and fears as well in your work, and we all do. We don't show it because we're afraid if we show it, we're the only one, and somehow we're weaker or less than. And I'm like, no, I lead with that. And I think that allows the other person to be open and vulnerable, and we form a bond that we would not have if I walked in and just said, here's my story, and it's all about winning and all the amazing things that I've done. People can't relate to that, or they feel like, well, I also got to put up a front to show you how I'm winning. And then you have this thing where you're not truly connecting. So, yeah.
For the events that you put together, so you do your annual gala and you participate in a lot of premieres. I'm just wondering, like, what type of experience, how are you thinking about the experience that you're trying to create out of those events so that people are coming back to GEANCO and giving you money? And then as another question related to that, the follow-up that happens afterwards, how do you think about that?
Absolutely. Well, I'll start with, our gala. So we have our big gala, which this year will be September 29th in LA for anyone who's interested. There'll be information on our website, and I'll post on LinkedIn about it as the time comes. But Friday, September 29th is
we'll let folks know too.
Thanks. I really appreciate that. And for that one, we call it a family reunion, even though it's in Hollywood. We call it bringing the GEANCO family together for a night. And yes, there's a red carpet, there's media, and there's stars, but really it's about connecting with folks who are just have been with our cause for a long time, or have learned about it for the first time. I have people who will text me an hour before the event. Hey, I just heard about this. Can I come? I'm like, yes, come learn about it. My family flies in for it, and we just share our story. We share what we've done over the past year, and you might have, Charlize has spoken at an event, Benedict Cumberbatch has spoken at an event, Chiwetel and David have spoken at events. So we have that, but really it's about the work, about the kids, about the women, and about this connecting. And it's amazing. People come and they love it because it's not like this, rubber chicken dinner, or seat at a table of people you barely know, and always speech after speech. It's very much mostly mingling and talking and connecting, and then we get together as a group and we just share a story. And so I love the event. It's the highlight of my year was that event. And then I tell my family in particular, that's almost a break from the event. Is the break. Like, the day after the event is where the work starts, because it is all about follow-up. And so every single person who comes gets personal outreach from me, whether it be a handwritten thank you note, a call, an email. I open my schedule for the month or two after the event, because I'm constantly trying to book lunches and dinners and coffees with folks who came for the first time and want to learn more, or friends who have come and have questions, or we've had some great donations come from people who came to the event and said, hey, I want you to meet someone who I think would be perfect for this. And so that's a great time of follow-up, but you really have to do it really as soon as the event ends, and that energy and that excitement and inspiration is still there. So my dad would always say, oh, now you can take a week off and rest. I'm like, no, now I have to actually work even harder after this event. Like, this is when the actual work starts. So that's great. And then for the premieres and set visits and what have you, for me, it's really, if I meet with an actor and they want to support, I think people, and it's kind of what lesson that I've learned, people will think, oh, can you tweet about us or post about us or whatever? And the post is up and it gets some likes maybe, but it goes away. I've never given myself to a charity that a celebrity has tweeted about or posted about or what have you. But I try to make it easy for them to support us in a bigger way. I say, hey, you're shooting this movie. can I bring donors on set and just watch you work? And they're like, yeah, of course. Like, it costs me nothing, costs the production nothing. Like, have them come. Like, it's super boring to us, but to someone, a wealthy donor from Texas or Kansas, they love it.
It's
Like,
a
this
once
is
in a
like a
lifetime.
once in a
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And we've done it before, and it's just seeing it through their eyes has been amazing. And they bond more closely to our work, and the actor does as well. They like, oh, like I get to like actually help in a very tangible way that's beyond just my team tweeting, and then for premieres, again, it's like 2 extra seats, 4 extra seats at a premiere for a movie you can see on Netflix in 2 weeks or in a theater in 2 weeks, but
Right.
that experience with the red carpet and again, it costs the studio nothing, it costs the actor nothing. We've done, have lunch with this person or meet and greets. And so just having that network and that exposure, and one can say, oh, well, you're in LA and you have access to all that. And that's true. That certainly is easier to pull off, but I would encourage anyone who wants to get a celebrity involved. Like, not many celebrities aren't born in LA. And I know there's a pocket of celebrities, Paul Rudd and John Hamm and others who are from the Kansas City area, and they support Kansas City Children's Hospital. And so they do a lot of fun stuff around that. And so wherever you're at on the planet, I guarantee there's some well-known person who's from that area or from that city. And so can you say, hey, I'm supporting, I know you live in LA now or New York, but can you come back to Cleveland and help us with the food bank? Or can you do something to support us at your next movie? And so I would just, people should just kind of do the legwork of trying to find someone who's connected to someone. And it's one of those things where if you put it out there, if you have it as a goal, and you're constantly mentioning it to your board, to your friends, to your family, you're going to find some connection to someone who can help you in that regard. And the key is that to build a relationship. Don't just be transactional. Don't just say, hey, actor X, can you post about us, or can you do this one-off thing? My thing is, I want our celebs to feel that they're part of our family, and that I can come back to them the next year and say, what can we do together this year? And they won't think like, oh, I did my good deed for you guys, like, go away. No, like, they want to keep helping. And they're like, what else can I do? And I have, again, some amazing people who are in really big movies who just like, let me know how I could help. This is actually good for me and good for my soul. And so we lean hard into that as well.
Great. No, I love that. So taking something that's a geographical weakness, or perceived as a weakness. Hey, I'm from middle of nowhere. Well, someone is from there. How do you actually make sure that they can become a draw for you? That's very cool. How can people, if they want to reach out to you or if they want to learn more about GEANCO, how can they do that?
Yeah, well, our website has a wealth of information, and it's GEANCO.org. So GEANCO with a G. That's our website, and we're on all the social media. We're at GEANCO FDN, so at GEANCO FDN on Twitter and Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn, so people can find my name, AFAM, is the first name, and then ONYEMA on LinkedIn, so they can reach out to me there. We have some great videos on YouTube, but they can find our YouTube on our website through the media page. We have all our medical missions and opening of the clinics and the celebrity stuff that we do. And so encourage anyone who's interested in learning more about our work to reach out, anyone who wants to support our work to reach out, or anyone who has questions about, working together or any insight I can help them on their journey, whether it's helping them tell their story or what have you. I just want to be a resource to folks.
Awesome. This is great. Thanks so much, Afam.
Thank you, Matt. It's been a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you so much for having me.